Hello, animation fans. I'm Scott T. Petersen, and welcome to another Animator Spotlight. Today we feature master animator Bill Waldman. It's been my great privilege to have worked alongside Bill on a number of projects and witness his great work ethic and beautiful animation. Bill has worked for Don Bluth, Disney, and Warner Brothers over the years on many film projects. In fact, if you've ever seen this famous Bugs Bunny opening to some of your favorite Warner Brothers animated movies and TV shows, then you've seen Bill's work because he's the one who animated it. Like most of us Generation X animators, he was bit by the animation bug very early in life, but I'll let him tell you about it in his own words. So sit back, relax, and get inspired by getting to know a little bit about this wonderful animator, Bill Waldman.
I grew up in central Pennsylvania, a small town called Williamsport. Two sisters, just always drew from the first time I can remember, like kindergarten, even probably before that. My favorite movie growing up was The Wizard of Oz, and the only time you could see it was once a year, around, I think, Easter time they showed it. And so I was drawing a lot of Wizard of Oz characters. That was kind of my thing. This would have been like late 60s, somewhere around there. Around the time I was about 10, they had the reissue of Mary Poppins in the theater, and I saw that. And I had seen some Disney movies before that, and I had never seen Mary Poppins before, but I did have, my mom, I think, had the record, so I was familiar with some of the songs. And so I was just completely blown away, though. I did not expect it to be that good. And after that, I was like, I have to see everything with the name Walt Disney on it from here forward. So whenever, like, a lot of that during the 70s, a lot of Disney movies were reissued from the past, and they were doing that. I think they had been doing that all along, but I think it seemed to become more prevalent. I think in the 70s, they just kept putting out the older films. And so I saw, I think, pretty much every animated feature in the theater that they had done by 83, I think. So in that 10-year period, I had seen everything. So, or at least all the animated features. So by the time, though, back up a little bit, by the time I was 13, I think I was 13 or 14 when The Rescuers came out, and I saw that in the theater, and at that point I was like, I have got to be a Disney animator. I don't know how I can make this happen. I don't know how to make an animated film. I don't know how the process is, but I got to make this happen somehow. So I remember there was a stationery store, like a paper supply store that was in town, and that my parents would go to sometimes, and they had these like little tablets, these little memo pads, but they were very thick. And I was telling my parents to get me some of those so I could make these flip books. So, because I saw kids at school making these stick figure man jumping, running, doing all kinds of things. I thought, well, I can actually do something a little more than a stick figure. I can actually make an actual character. And so I began drawing the Disney characters and then trying to animate them on these like little flip book kind of things. And that's kind of how it started. Started making my own films when I was in soon after seeing The Rescuers. The art department that I was at the junior high and high school I was going to, they were really supportive of me, and they had a 8mm camera that they had a device where you could hook up to it, where you could take just one frame of movie film at a time. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I can actually make an animated movie. I mean, how is it, So I began doing that. The first project was filming one of the little flip books I had. We were able to zoom in close enough to where we filmed this little thing, and actually had an 8mm film running through a projector of animation on a flip book, So that graduated into, in high school, I made an animated film that was full on cells with sound. What it was is I didn't really know what I was doing, but what I did was, then again, this goes back to my love for The Wizard of Oz. I took basically the first part of The Wizard of Oz and thought, I actually had planned on doing more, but I soon realized that would be impossible. And basically I animated the Over the Rainbow sequence and the Twister sequence. Painted on cells with oil paint, and the oil paint I used, even though oil paint just took forever to dry, I liked the color better than acrylics, and painted my own backgrounds. And don't ask me how I made the sound sync up with the picture, because I really had no equipment or no means of doing that. but that was between, like I say, it was during my high school years, between like age 15 to age 17. So it premiered like, I think my senior year, like around Christmas time, right about this time of the year. I think it was December 17th of 1980. Kind of a neat thing because all my friends in high school turned out for it, and it was kind of a big deal. But I sort of figured, I was like, what's going to set me apart from all the other people that want to do this with their life? I need to really make something unique and different and kind of, big, I guess, is what I was thinking. And, I think when you're young, you think more like that. Like you can think, there's more idealism there, more like conquer the impossible kind of thing. So from there, when I went to college, again, trying to think big, I was like I'm going to make a 23-minute, special animated film. It's going to be my own original story. It's me create, everything by myself or whatever, and record the voices and all that stuff. And at the college, of course, they went to was Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania, and they had all the equipment for doing that. They had all the editing and the sound facilities for recording and all the other stuff that I needed. The film professor there was not an animator, but he was a documentary filmmaker, knew a lot about film and editing and sound and everything like that. So he was able to help me out a lot with that. But a lot of the animation thing was a lot self-taught. He did know a good amount about storyboarding, and so that I learned a lot from in that aspect there as well. And as it went, I came to him my freshman year and asked him. I told him I wanted to do this project, and he probably thought I was completely crazy. I wanted to do a 23-minute animated, almost featurette kind of film, and I wanted to animate it myself. And but he let me do it, and it began that year, and it lasted all through my college career. By the time I got to my senior year, it was very clear I was not going to be able to do it completely in color, and that I was asked permission if I could graduate with just it being done in pencil test form, and he agreed to it. Although I guess that's not the norm. They usually like to have a completely finished film in color with everything all completely done, music track and all that. It's basically a pencil test now with a voice and sound effects track, but no music track. And so that's what I graduated with, and that film got me like 3 jobs, pretty much my first 3 jobs. First job was in Pittsburgh, and it was a small commercial studio. The second job was a little bit larger commercial studio in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And then the third job that film got me was Don Bluth out here in California, and that was at the end of 1989. There's a lot of problems with the story, and I'd have to really, if I ever wanted to finish it, I'd have to kind of rework some elements of the story so it would make a little more sense. But basically what it is about this young boy named Arnold, who is a pretty mischievous little boy, and kind of just has fun at the expense of other people, plays practical gags on them, abuses his pets sort of thing, just sort of like that kind of bad boy kind of thing. He goes fishing one day and is pulled under. Instead of thinking he has a fish, he's pulled under, and he's put on trial by the fish for all the things he's had done in his life, and he's sorry that he did that.
Well, earlier today, I went outside to play with my ball when all of a sudden, from out of nowhere, that great big boy jumped out at me and grabbed my ball. I got my ball back, but before I knew what was happening, he was swinging his big fish hook at me, trying to kill me.
But, Your Honor,
Silence! Now, the prosecuting attorney will please continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, members of the jury, I would like to point out that today's incident is typical of Arnold's behavior.
The rest of the film, he's trying to escape from this situation, comes and wakes up, finds it's a dream, but he has a change of heart, change of repentance, and the title of the film is called Fish Hooked. And like I say, it exists in just a pencil test form at this point. And maybe forever. I don't know, maybe when I retire, maybe I can see about finishing it. Some of my limitations, when you see some people that are really, really good, you just like, wow, I'm just not nearly as good as that guy is. That guy can draw rings around me. My gosh, how am I ever going to? I mean, so I do recognize my limitations, and you start to think, well, okay, there's some things you have control over, other things you don't have control over. You do have control over how hard you work. Sometimes, just talent, there's a certain level of talent that, someone has, and that can be developed and pushed further, and they can get better, of course. But that takes time, and usually that comes through hard work too. So I think that I've always thought that, and there's a lot to be said for effort. I would say that it's helped me a lot in this, especially as I've gotten older in this industry, is to trust in God more and rely on Him to provide for me for work, because as you know, the work is very cyclical and very much, you're hired usually for run of production, so you're pretty much, got to find your own job the next time around. And I really look back and I really see how God's really blessed me in that area in tremendous ways. My parents are religious as well, and well, it's kind of interesting. I think I was raised Catholic. I say, but there's a certain point to where you have to kind of make the faith your own. There's a certain point where you're like, okay, is this my faith, or is it just my parents' faith I'm carrying on? It's definitely helped a lot in terms of leaning on my faith and trusting in God more, because with the industry as uncertain as it is, with job market so uncertain, it's really good to have that anchor. The Parrots, apparently, I don't know if it's 100% true, or it might be a rumor, but apparently the Parrots, 2 parrots escaped from a Burbank pet shop a long time ago, and they breeded, and they've formed this entire flock that around this time of the day, between like 4:30 and 5, they kind of come around and nest and perch in the trees and just make all kinds of squawking noise. And that's, if you're hearing that in the background, that's what it is. So